here.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode 930. This is for the 13th of November, 2023. And we are glad you are here. And I'm going to be stepping back a little bit. I've got a horrible stomach bug, and I have barfed twice during the evening news block, which is not a good thing. So, Bill, I'm going to let you run this show. So you
Ooh.
count us down when you want to start.
All right, we got how much time till our television viewers join us here? I don't have my Apple
You got
Watch.
30 seconds.
Go ahead and steal that.
You feel better.
Yeah, James, this is a first.
Yeah, this is
You've been forced, you've been hoarse, and you've had
Very,
COVID and all kind of stuff,
very
but you've never
odd.
been sick
It's
during the show.
nasty. But the show must go on.
The show will go on. As a matter of fact, it will go on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And welcome to our television viewers.
Oh, we have to roll the audio.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So,
and counting down again in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band. The AMS Weather Band is a global community of weather enthusiasts dedicated to learning and sharing their love of science. Visit amsweatherband.org to learn more and join the band today.
And many thanks to our friends at the AMS Weather Band for their sponsorship of the WeatherBrains podcast, the weekly netcast that's all about weather. And we are sort of without our fearless leader tonight, who has a bit of the tummy bug. And he's going to be lurking in the background. But guys, we get to do whatever we want to do tonight. This is show 930, and we've got a lot of fun planned for us. We'll go around the room and introduce all of our regular panelists, starting with Jen Nairmore. Jen, what are we going to do with Penn State? We got to win the big game. What's happening here?
I don't know. We've already made the one attempt and got rid of the offensive coordinator. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that was another sad showing during the big game, but we move along. You know what? We have to remember they're kids. You know, we get so invested. They are kids, and they're supposed to be going to college and get their degree. So it's just we'll just see what happens next Saturday.
That's right. Well, that's good. Well, how's your weather in Columbus, Ohio?
It's been great. I went out for a walk today. You know, it's these days when you have highs in the 60s is just amazing in November. So went outside, and somebody wishes she could have gone with me, but I left her inside. But this is Cece. So she's hanging out. Yeah.
She's becoming a star of the show here. We might have to make her a regular panelist, before it's all over with.
She'll give you her bio. She's ready.
and Dr. Kim Clocko-McLean in Norman, Oklahoma. Kim, how's your world?
Going great. I just came back, and I might have a little bit of a raspy voice because I just got back from the International Association of Emergency Managers annual meeting last week in Long Beach, California. So that was not a terrible place to have a meeting. It was pretty wonderful. And just an overall great meeting. It was my first time getting to go to that one. And so I get to do some really neat stuff with our centers at, venues like that. So perfect over here. Things are great.
Well, that is fabulous. We'll have to talk about that maybe after the recorded segments for a little bit tonight when we get around to the weather roundup. So it's good to have you here. How's the weather in Norman today?
Gorgeous. We've had that kind of beautiful fall weather where it's transitioning to fall because as the sun sets, it just kind of looks like a little bit more of like an eerie twilight. This is where Neil would come in with his definitions of degrees of darkness and degrees of sunset colors. I was thinking about that as I admired how pretty it was, and I was like, oh, Neil would jump in right here with the sun is this many degrees below the horizon, Kim. That's why this is happening this way. But it's also just a feature, I think, of the compactness of the atmosphere and combined with the angle to produce just a stellar, beautiful sky. So yeah, we've had gorgeous, perfect fall weather here. Can't complain.
Well, that is fabulous. We're hopefully we'll get a little bit of rain in Alabama. We'll see. Dr. Neil Jacobs, your name was being used in vain there. Where are you located tonight?
I am in North Carolina. Just the weather's been beautiful here, actually. Just kind of doing some stuff around the house. I had to check the vent from the bathroom, went up on the roof to make sure all the airflow was good, and then noticed from the top of my roof that the leaves in my backyard were at their peak. So I took a photo from the top of my roof and sent it to some people, and they were like, "Why are you on your roof taking photos of your yard?"
Well, have all the leaves fallen so you can clean the gutters now, Dr.
No,
Bill? We
no.
should not be allowing you on roofs. You do not have a good track record.
I'm gonna have to go back up there with the leaf blower in another couple of weeks. And sadly, my anemometer is no longer there, so my friends over at the Wonder Map won't see how fast my gas powered leaf blower can propel their high wind speed.
You'll be an outlier when you get your anemometer back. Well, it's good to have you here tonight. We have a lot of fun talking about it. James A. in Tulsa. How's the weather up there where you are?
Just like Kim said, it's fantastic. 72 today, 9 degrees above
Perfect.
average. And this whole week looks fantastic. So we've closed the complaint department. Usually everybody will email and say, are we going to get 2 weeks of fall again this year? And yeah, we've had 3. So we're living in high cotton.
There you go. Well, it's good to have you here tonight. We're going to have a fun show. Well, tonight's guest weather brain is a recovering broadcast meteorologist who has traded in her green screen for the greener pastures of higher education. She needs no introduction to residents of Central Alabama, but for everyone else, get ready for a real treat. Ashley Gann, welcome to WeatherBrains.
So glad to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I hate
Well,
that I ran
Ashley,
James off tonight. I feel bad about that.
well, that's all right. We'll have you back sometime when he's feeling a little better.
Yes.
But we've done this 930 times. To lose him once in all that time period, and maybe a couple of laryngitis cases. Otherwise, that's not a bad record. But
Yeah.
Ashley, I've stopped doing elaborate intros because we always learn so much fascinating information from our guest weather brains, via the questions that we ask. So we'll cover that in just a minute. But we've got some special guests on the show tonight. They're going to be here to talk about a special event. Well, I guess just one right now. We don't have Phil and James. You're it. You're going to have to do the whole thing.
I picked the smallest straw, and here I am.
Well, that works. We're so glad you're here. We've got a really fun event coming up on Saturday, and tonight. There are 3 other weather podcasts that are joining with us on Saturday to produce the Weather Pods Disaster Relief Telethon, which is going to completely 100% benefit the American Red Cross. And you cannot appreciate how much work has gone into something like this. I feel terrible that I just kind of came in on the end. People like Phil Johnson, who's the founder of the Stormfront Freaks podcast. I think it was his brainchild. James from the Carolina Weather Gang, who's with us tonight, is responsible for all the incredible technical work going on behind the scenes. And also Gabe Harbor from Chaser Chat. That's the other podcast that's involved. And Carly Sisson has done some amazing graphics artwork to get ready for this. But James, tell us what the telethon is all about, and how people can connect into it.
Well, if you like Weather Brains, but you wish it was 6 times longer, then this is what Saturday is going to be for. 10 a.m. Eastern until 10 p.m. Pacific, streaming here and across all of our channels. As Bill mentioned, we're going to be raising money for the American Red Cross. We got a who's who of weather guests that'll be joining us for interviews throughout the day. So we hope people come, they hang out, they chat, and if we raise a little money along the way, that is our primary objective, because the American Red Cross is there when people need help recovering from weather and other natural disasters. So we're so happy that Weather Brains will be along with us. Bill, it's been a pleasure working with you, and we're really looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. The list of weather personalities is extremely impressive. Give a little tantalizing tease of a few of the big names that are coming.
Scheduled to appear: Jim Cantori, Ginger Z, Bill Sudduth, Tony Rice, who I know you all know. And that's only about 1 hour's worth of guests. So we've got 11 more hours after that it's going to be a really rocking day, and we're looking forward to it. And I know it's like you mentioned, it was a brainchild of Phil, and I'm just so glad that he invited us to join him. And I think that speaks to the weather collaboration amongst our industry and amongst our shows. We are not competitors, we are not enemies. We can do big things together, and I think this is a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's the really neat thing about this is that all of these podcasts are unique and different, and there's something in it for everyone. Troy Kimmel joins us now from Texas A&M. He's been out, he's actually at the University of Texas, but he's an A&M guy.
I'll take that.
Troy, you out there collecting some money for the buyout, or what's the deal?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been asked to kind of beat the go out here and try to see what I can come up with money wise. And I've already come up with about $75.
75 cents or dollars or
dollars.
75 million.
No.
Well, maybe we can have a telethon to benefit the university next.
What a great job that would be to have for the next. I forget, a student walked in today, not taking away from what James is talking about, but a student walked into the office today and pointed out how much this means that he makes a day for the next 7 years, and it's like $24,000 a day. So I said, yeah, I could sit on my butt and do that probably.
Yeah, that's kind of my business partner. One of my business partners asked me, said, who would take that job? And I said, well, for that kind of buyout, I would take it tomorrow.
Yeah, for that kind of buyout, I'm not sure I'd want that job, to be honest.
He got paid $2 million per win, something like that.
That's not bad. Not bad work if you can get it. Well, Troy, it's nice to have you with us. You
and I'm sorry. I apologize on behalf of our guests and everybody just running late here. So
that's okay. We're better late than never. So it's good to have you here. James, going back to what we were talking about there, looking beyond this version of the telethon, do you envision this becoming an annual event, or are there plans for this in the future?
I think if all goes well, Bill, I think we've kind of talked about how this could be very beneficial to a lot of folks, and it's right there at the start of the holiday season. So if it's something that you all and your listeners would like to see more of, then we hope we get a good turnout on Saturday that will encourage us to come back and do it again. And I should mention our website right now is bit.ly/WX Pods Telethon. So bit.ly/WX PODS Telethon.
And so that'll get you to the website, right, James, where you can stream it or donate or do whatever. Are there any other ways that people can connect?
That will take you right to the American Red Cross website, where on Saturday you'll be able to watch the live stream and make a secure donation. We're not touching any of the money. It goes straight through to their website, and we will be streaming amongst other places on YouTube. So I say that, Bill, because if you're like me, I like to just pop YouTube up on the smart TV, and you can just leave it on all day long or take it with you on your phone. It's one of those very versatile platforms. So amongst Facebook and the platform lovingly formerly known as Twitter, we'll also be on YouTube this weekend.
Well, that is fantastic. I am excited because I was able to get Ken Graham to agree to join me in the 3 p.m. Central Time hour. And Mike Bettis is going to join us at 3:20 at Central Time. And then, it's kind of hard to get folks on Saturday. Kim Clocko-McLean, I went after Harold Brooks, and I knew he would be officiating a volleyball game somewhere, but I took a chance and struck out.
I'm impressed by that lineup, Bill. I feel like I got to go step up my game.
No, I tell you what, for all the work that went into this, I was going to make sure we had some good guests. So let me get Dr. Neil Jacobs to help me. Kim, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say you put together an incredible lineup. But yes, Harold is. I couldn't even get the guy to come to my wedding, man. Good luck. He's just, yeah, he's tough. He's tough to pin down, that one. He's other good ones.
That is so funny. Well, James, you're welcome to stick around if you want, but I know you probably got lots to do. Anything else you need to tell the audience out there about the telethon?
If you are watching WeatherBrains right now, and Bill can correct me if I'm wrong, this is where you'll be able to watch the telethon on Saturday. And if you listen to the audio podcast, and I'm sure they'll be carrying some highlights in the weeks ahead as we go through the holiday season. My apologies for stepping on Kim a minute ago, and I thank you all for your time, and I'm looking forward to Saturday.
Well, we are looking forward to it too. Thank you for making this happen, James.
Thanks, James.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your show.
And tune into the Carolina Weather Gang every week. A fabulous show.
We would love that.
And always enjoyable. Come back and see us soon, James.
I will. Thanks. All
right, Ashley. we've gotten all that out of the way now. This is going to be a big event. We're really, really looking forward to it. But we got a special segment lined up for you tonight. So you are our new guinea pig. We're going to kind of borrow a page from the famous Colbert questionnaire that used to run after you did the news on Channel 42 in Birmingham.
Oh, yeah.
But for those who are unfamiliar, it's sort of a set of intriguing and whimsical questions that Colbert asks celebrities on his show. So these are designed to, sort of bring out the unique, the personal insight, a little fun and lighthearted. We're going to call it the WeatherBrains Whirlwind. So that's our name for it. 4 questions for you, top of your head. Don't even think about it. Just answer. If you were a season, what season would you be, Ashley?
Fall.
Fall. All right, there we go. I bet you got a lot of takers on that. I think it's almost unanimous.
Mostly because of football, not so much to do with the weather.
I love it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
I would be a spring person just because of severe weather, but fall's growing on me as I get older. That's for sure. What's the most bizarre thing you've ever done in a storm?
The most bizarre thing I've ever done in a storm. Well, I did try to lean into the wind during Hurricane Katrina when we were in Starkville. I was a graduate student at Mississippi State. So we all went outside, we painted our ponchos, and then we went and leaned into the wind. And with our, old school cameras that we had to actually take to the store and develop the film, that's what we took pictures with. So that's probably one of the most interesting things I've done during a storm.
That's nice and safe. It didn't get us in trouble with the FCC, and we appreciate that, Ashley.
Right. I had to think about that one because I now work somewhere that I could get in trouble depending on my past. So, yeah.
Well, you can thank ChatGPT for that question. So we would blame them if it had gone askew there. But if you could control the weather for a day, what kind of weather would you create?
Ooh, I would actually have stormy weather. I like a good storm. I like a good thunderstorm. And I'm going to tell you this, now that I don't have to cover it and be wall to wall and be on call for it, it's become a little bit more enjoyable, actually. So I don't get the anxiety of having to go in. So I would just love a good summer thunderstorm. Probably my favorite.
That's funny. Yeah. So I guess recovering broadcast meteorologist has some PTSD that you got to clear out. Last thing, what's the funniest weather-related blooper that happened to you?
I ate a bug on live television.
Right.
I was doing a live shot outside, and during that live shot, I consumed protein in the form of it was dark outside and it was beginning to rain, and the light was attracting the bugs, and being in Alabama, of course, we have plenty of them. And so it flew into my mouth. It's on YouTube, actually. And I don't know how I handled it. Like looking, and I'm not a particularly like scared person. I'm not very reactive in that way all the time. But in this case, somehow I kept my cool, which is actually a little bit outside of like normal Ashley, but something about being on television. Bug flew in and I felt it hit my lip, and I go to my anchor, a bug just flew in my mouth. And I continued on with the forecast. And at the end I rewatched it and I think I ate that bug. I never saw the bug leave my mouth. So that's probably my funniest on-air blooper.
That is so funny. You were a great first contestant on our WeatherBrains Whirlwind, and I'm excited now to have Gabe Harbor join us. Gabe is the proprietor of the Chaser Chat weather podcast. Gabe, how are you tonight?
Good, Bill. How you doing?
Pretty good. We had James drop in and tell us all about the telethon, so now we're gonna rustle you and make you stay for the rest of the show. You up for it, or you got some work to do?
Hey, I'm down if you are.
Well, we'd love to have an extra panelist. Gabe, tell us a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
So Chaser Chat is, as the name implies, a storm chaser specific podcast. So a little more niche than some of the other podcasts that are out there like you folks. And one of the things that I really pride the show on is that we bring on storm chasers, smaller names, bigger names, people in the middle. I have a theory, which is that everybody is a lot more interesting than they think they are. So I oftentimes end up reaching out to people who may not have many followers on social media. Maybe they've never even really storm chased before, but they want to get into it. And they always end up having just the most fascinating stories to tell. And it's definitely something that I've enjoyed a lot, is getting to put a spotlight on people in the storm chasing community.
Talk about the telethon and why it's important to you, Gabe, and what you're looking forward to on Saturday.
So there's two aspects of it that are really important to me. The first aspect is, of course, the disaster relief, and the fact that as a storm chaser, the community is very concerned about making sure the impacts of storms are taken care of, in terms of making sure that communities have whatever resources they need afterwards. Being on the front line out there after the disaster happens, it's definitely something that is of paramount importance. But the other thing is, I think this is an opportunity for maybe a lot of people in the weather community who, there's the WeatherBrains tribe, the Stormfront Freaks tribe, the Carolina Weather Group tribe. I think this will be a great opportunity as well for a lot of people who might not have had exposure to other folks in the weather community to all come together. And I think that there could be a lot of really awesome things that spring out of this in the future.
Well, I'm really excited to invite any of our panelists. I know they know this already, but come join at any hour on that day. I know Gabe and James and Phil would love to have any and everybody. We have our hour between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, but I'm going to hang around for that next hour too, and hang out with Gabe as he has some really cool guests. Who have you got lined up through the day, Gabe, to tantalize some of the listeners here?
Well, first off, I'm super excited to have you on with me for an hour. So that was just a little extra special surprise when James Brierton told me about that. So can't wait to be on the air with you. During that hour, we're going to be talking to Cameron Nixon from SPC. Obviously, he does a lot of great work on the research side of things as well. And then Aaron Jack, Liz Lightman from the SPC, and Brandon Kopic, a storm chaser with Radar Omega. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of awesome conversation for us.
Anytime there's a storm anywhere, Brandon is on it.
Yeah.
You can almost always count on him to be there. So, Gabe, please join us for the rest of the show. We're going to have a fun time talking to Ashley. We'd love you to be one of the panelists with us. Are you game for it, or you need to run?
I'm totally game for it.
Okay, good. Well, you're deputized. Oh, Ashley's got guests. Ashley, we love this part of the show. Kim will go get her kids here in a second. We'll have a complete daycare. Introduce us, Ashley.
Can you tell everybody your name?
My name is Rhett.
Rhett. Can you spell it?
R-H-E-T-T.
Yes. How old are you?
Wow.
5. Do you love weather? What's your favorite kind of weather? Rain. It's my girl.
Oh, I love it. That's
all right,
awesome.
Mrs. Claus, it's time for bed.
Yes,
this is number 3 of 4. This is Rhett, and her curls match her personality for sure.
Yeah, well, with that name, she could not miss. I'll tell you what. That is too funny. Ashley, tell us about your other kids. That some of them had weather significances in their birth dates, I hear.
Yes. So I have a few weather babies of my own. So when's your birthday?
October 10th.
October 10th. And do you remember what storm was happening on October 10th? It was a hurricane.
5 years ago. What could that be, Troy Kimmel?
Michael. It was Hurricane Michael. Was making landfall at the same time. And we were literally taking bets in the delivery room who was going to make landfall first, if it was going to be Rhett or Hurricane Michael. And the funny story about that, I was watching the Weather Channel and I had plenty of friends on there. And so finally I had to turn it off. I said, this is just awkward. I don't need them in here while I'm delivering a baby. I was like, I knew my friend was like, they don't need to be in here. So that was the running joke. First, I turned it off the local news because those were like way too close of friends. And then I turned it on the Weather Channel. I was like, okay, somebody's just going to have to text me when Michael makes landfall. So Michael beat Rhett by about 1 hour. But anyway, so that was Rhett. So she was a hurricane baby. And then my firstborn, her name is Reagan. She was born on February 4th, 2014.
Wonder what happened that day.
You know, Ice-ageddon, Snowmageddon, whatever you want to call it. It shut the entire Southeast down. Well, in Montgomery, we had kind of planned for it. It was that whole, you know, the ice went further north than we expected, all of that. But where we were in Montgomery, a bit further south, we were a bit prepared for it. Her due date was actually January 29th. So I had gone to the doctor, and then they sent me home, and then, you know, everything started to devolve from there. But what I remember most is that our heater went out, and we had the most fabulous HVAC company come over, and they were pouring concrete and replacing a full furnace because the house got down to 50 something degrees, and we were going to bring a newborn home, and I was panicking. And so we went. Thankfully, we didn't have any other additional woes, but we were the last customer that they serviced until after the ice storm was pretty much over. So I was very grateful for that. Very grateful that we were at the hospital and nice and warm and cozy and didn't have any issues getting to and from the hospital. But so my Snowmageddon baby, and Rhett is my hurricane baby. And then our last one, Easton, was born on January 29th. Nothing super weather significant other than there was a full moon that night. So they always say that, you know, things happen on a full moon. So he was a full moon baby. So there you go. There's our fun weather nuances for 3 of our 4 kids. And then the other one, he's just a summer baby. August. It was just hot. Typical.
So Ashley, tell us where you grew up.
So I was born. Do you remember where mommy was born? Can you tell them? Where was I born? Where was I born? In Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, Fort Worth, Texas.
That's right. So so my mom actually went to Auburn, and after she graduated, she moved to Fort Worth. That's where she got her first job. And she worked for General Dynamics, met my dad, and the rest is history, as they say. So I was born there. I grew up in Fort Worth until middle school, when his job transferred us to the Atlanta area. He was working for General Dynamics, then Lockheed. And so I ended up graduating high school in Atlanta, and that's where they still live. And my husband, actually, he was one of the first people I met when I moved to Georgia in middle school. And but we didn't date till later in life. But he was a friend ever since childhood, so that's kind of a fun fact there. And but yeah, and then I ended up going to Auburn for undergrad, Mississippi State for grad school, and did weather as my career until I took a mid-career pivot about 3 months ago.
Yeah, Ashley, what was your undergraduate? It was in not pure meteorology, correct?
No, so my undergraduate degree was aerospace engineering. If I wasn't doing weather, I wanted to be an astronaut. And actually, do you want to show them Jan Davis? Who's our favorite astronaut? Her picture's right there. Grab that picture. Right there. There's Jan. So Jan Davis, cool. If anybody knows Jan, is an Auburn graduate. Yeah, and she signed this for my girls, and it says, "Reach for your star." So she's one of our favorite astronauts. Auburn has quite a few of them. And when I was in school as a student, so kind of a fun fact, actually, before I went to Auburn, I had applied to Florida State, and that's where I was going to go. I was going to do meteorology. So I actually had a pretty big love for weather. I had a respect for Mother Nature, having growing up in Texas. And then we moved to Georgia. Hurricane Opal had happened. I actually got a tour of the Weather Channel in about 9th or 10th grade. It was around the time Hurricane Opal had moved through. And so I was just fascinated. It was super busy. And it was just, I mean, it was everything that a meteorologist could dream of, right? And so I really had, that's really what I wanted to do. Kind of got cold feet my senior year and thought, man, meteorology is a really specialized degree. If I don't follow through with this, I'm going to have to do more school anyway. So I thought, well, maybe I'll major in like an easy major, like aerospace engineering, you know, I'll do that instead. But truth be told, I didn't really have any connections to Florida State. So I knew nobody. I had a handful of friends that went to Auburn, but I had history being legacy there. So went there, but Auburn didn't have a meteorology program. So I thought, you know what? I'll do aerospace. I knew all the math and science would parlay very nicely into a weather master's. So I thought, worst case, I'll go get a master's. I'll have 2 years in my back pocket if I needed that. But while I was in school, so bringing it back to old Jan Davis here. So I had a professor. Yep, there's Jan. So I had a professor named Colonel Voss, Jim Voss. He was another fabulous astronaut, graduate of Auburn, and he was my senior design professor, worked at Auburn for 2 years. And during that time, he revealed to us that the shuttle program was going to be going away. And he said there was actually a very small generation of students that would probably likely never get a chance to fly in a space shuttle, and it was our class. And so he said, due to the fact that they would be transitioning and going to the private sector, or it would take a long time for the public sector to come back, he really encouraged most of the students. So only one other student from our class actually went on to pursue being an astronaut. So a lot of them became pilots and a lot of other things. So it's kind of an interesting twist in my professional career. And a lot of them now work in Huntsville. They work for the space program. So, I mean, all have had very successful careers in the space, kind of space industry, flight industry, and all of that. But I went on to do weather and loved it. And, you know, people often ask, like, how did you go from aerospace engineering all the way to weather? Because they think it's such a big gap, you know, or such a big jump. And it's really not. I mean, you and I know here, it's really not. And I think fundamentally, all my foundation with all of my math and science and thermo and all of that stuff, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because it made grad school, I hate to say easier, but it definitely didn't make it as challenging as I think for some of the other students that were coming in from a liberal arts background or communications background. So I'm very grateful for my engineering background for setting me up for that, for sure.
Hey, Ashley, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you've talked a little bit about your children and how they have some weather-connected names. And I have a daughter who's 14 years old. She wants to go storm chasing really badly, but her mom, my ex-wife, is totally not on board with it. I'm just wondering where you stand on that. Do you plan on going out maybe someday with your kids? Do you want them to wait till they're older? What would your thoughts be on that?
Done safely, I think that there is an opportunity for that. I also think, do you want to chase storms one day? Would you like to chase storms?
Does that mean you have to chase them and run to them?
Do you have to chase them and run to them? So here's where I probably, my husband and I are a very good fit. I probably was not born with a healthy dose of fear, and he was. And so we balance each other. So I continue to push limits, even sometimes with our kids. So, for example, my husband's 6'6" and he's afraid of heights, which is very ironic. I love roller coasters. He will do them, but I get my children on all of them, and it freaks him out. So needless to say, we're probably on different pages when it comes to storm chasing, but I think done safely. But I always say that when we track storms, so that's the phraseology we use in our house, is we track them. I love to teach my kids about the skies. So anything that I can do to help enhance their knowledge of the skies, I will do. I'm not sure that I would full-fledged chase. I mean, I did chase when I was in grad school. I may wait till they're a little bit older and maybe have a few more bucks in their Roth IRA and life insurance before I take them out with me. But we learn about the skies a lot. We teach them about clouds and what things look like, and really just to kind of allay any fears, because obviously children have a heavy dose of fear when it comes to storms. So we try to alleviate fear in our family and try to practice safety as much as we can. So I think there's a balance. I think that there's kind of like a necessary protection that comes in, but I think that there's also an opportunity to learn a little bit if you can take your kids out and do it safely.
Hey, Gabriel, I'll jump in with an easy storm chasing answer.
Easy.
All you have to do is drive to Kim's house, stare at the roof, and wait for it's on the way.
You can count on some large hail coming very soon.
That's kind of the sneak peek of the Patreon content in our chat, right?
Brett really enjoys the wee hours of the morning, say between like 2 and 4 a.m., and she might really enjoy a little QLCS spin up from the roof. Those also are really easily viewable from my roof. The climatology, that's also very solid.
Noted.
That is so funny. So Ashley, tell us how you got started on your work, a part of your life. How did that evolve? And we're all excited to hear about what you're doing now. So kind of walk us down that path.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, right. Can you tell everybody night? It's time for bed. Okay.
Thank you for joining us, Red.
Okay. Go see Miss
You're
Meek,
awesome.
okay. Have a good night. There you go.
Oh,
Thank
perfect.
y'all. So how I got my start. So pretty short answer. When I went to grad school at Mississippi State, I actually was able to start freelancing a little bit at WTOK, which I feel like anybody who went to state, that's one of the 3 stations that somebody starts at. So was able to do that. And then as we were going into my second year, I ended up applying for several jobs early on in that semester, thinking, man, it's just going to take a while to get a job. So I better start sending out the VHS tapes. Yes, the VHS tapes, which I did. I did remember a mentor of mine once say that I needed to make it creative. So I remember making a little box and putting popcorn in the box when I sent out my VHS tapes. But needless to say, I sent out my third one and I already had a job offer, and it was in Montgomery, which was close enough to Auburn to where in my mind, I thought, well, you know what? Even regardless how the job goes, I can drive to football games on the weekend. So, it's a win. I'm pretty close to home in Atlanta. So we'll take it. Well, it ended up being a great opportunity. But then the boss man calls and says, hey, we need you to start in February. And I said, well, I don't graduate until May. So we worked out a deal to where I worked weekends and I would travel back to Starkville during the week. So I was in class Monday through Friday. Yes, an A class on Monday. My only saving grace is that I had grandparents that were in Birmingham. So I would drive from Starkville, or I would drive, from Starkville down to Montgomery, work the weekend shift. And on Sunday nights, I would drive to Birmingham, spend the night, wake up at 5 a.m., and then make it to my 8 a.m. class on Mondays. Finished out the semester, worked in Montgomery for about a year and a half as the weekend meteorologist, and moved into the morning spot after about 6 months. But then after that, I ended up working in Atlanta, then ended up with a chief job back in Montgomery, and then moved on to Birmingham, did mornings for a couple of years, and was promoted to chief, and did that for the last almost 5 years. Well, actually 5 years. So
yeah, that's very
kind of
cool.
in a nutshell.
So what made you decide to shift your career to what you're doing now?
Okay, you can sit right there and stay awake. Okay. Our friends. Okay, you can sit on the couch. You want to sit on the couch? Yes.
Yeah, she's gonna meet a new friend here in just a second, Ashley.
So Rhett's my most outgoing of all.
Kim's gonna go get her daughter Lily, and they can play together while we talk.
Oh, that would be great. But yes, okay. So Bill, repeat your question.
Yeah. So tell us, what made you decide to jump from broadcast meteorology to working for, this place that you love, Auburn University.
Yeah, and giving a little bit more context to my career journey, I've been very lucky and very blessed. And so I was grateful to say that I was able to pivot out of my career to High Point. And I'm super grateful for the news directors that I had. And generally speaking, I worked in great work environments. And I know the industry is changing a lot. And I know that the future is going to look very different for a lot of folks that are staying in broadcasting. But I say that to say, when I came back from Atlanta, I was in Atlanta for a little bit of time at the NBC station there. My old news director had called and said, hey, I have a chief opening for our chief is retiring. Would you like to come back and be chief? And I was a very young meteorologist at the time. And I thought, golly, does he know what he's asking? As this whippersnapper, I felt like I just had a few years under my belt. But I took the opportunity, which made me the first female chief meteorologist in the state of Alabama. Oh, we've got some more little ones. So I ended up being the first female chief, which really became an opportunity for me to use that as a platform in the state. And I got really involved in a lot of groups like Girl Scouts and STEM organizations. I was a judge for science fairs, and really helping to inspire the next generation of not only youth, but specifically girls to be involved in STEM. And so that, fast forward through all the years, stayed involved with all of that, came up to Birmingham, obviously. But one of the things that was very pleased to play. He left that so we could get married and allow me to chase my dreams. And he's always been incredibly supportive. And so he had a couple opportunities in Birmingham. He started a business there, and he also had another opportunity to start a business in Auburn. And that opportunity came up in December of last year. So almost a year ago, he came home one day and he said, hey, I've been talking to this guy. There's an opportunity to start this business down in Auburn. And I said, all right, I'm packing my bags. He goes, hold on. You carry the health insurance, Ashley. You can't just quit your job. So I was like, oh, wait. I said, but you said Auburn. You said move. And he was like, well, and you have a career. Like, you can't just walk away from that. So I said, okay, fair point. So, so what ended up happening is one, where we really just prayed about it. And then I said, let me just see what opportunities are in higher education. Prior to that, I had actually been talking to some professors at the university about possibly getting my PhD. And those conversations started during COVID, when things were a little bit more virtual and accessible. But so I thought, well, maybe this is a chance for me to go back and get a little education, get my PhD, and maybe do research or something like that. Well, ends up, I started looking online for job opportunities. Completely overwhelmed after day one, by the way. If you've ever tried to look for jobs on any of, and that's the other thing. I've never had a job outside of TV since I've been in the profession, So I was like, this is totally different. My resume needs to look totally different, slightly stressful. So I found a recruiter on LinkedIn at Auburn, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm doing this kind of backwards. Here's my skill set. Let me know if you have anything available. And she's like, I have the perfect job for you. Get me a resume by close of business. I'll walk it across campus. And sure enough, she did. And the rest is history. So the job is I'm the public information officer for campus safety. And I handle all the crisis communication and strategic planning in both inward and outward facing for the university. So it's a really cool job. I get to do what I love the most about what I even did as a broadcast meteorologist, and that's to serve, which that was kind of born out of April 27th, which we can kind of dissect later. But that was really the impetus for why I did what I did after that day. Prior to April 27th, it was a lot of head knowledge, forecasting. I'm a skilled meteorologist, but after that day, I realized it was really about service and it was about people. And so that's exactly what I get to do at Auburn. So I get to serve people, I get to help them, I get to create strategies that better give information to help keep people safe. And I get to do that through the campus safety department here at Auburn. So kind of a long-winded answer, but that was kind of my journey to where I am. And even people say, oh, it seems so different. Again, it's that whole aerospace engineering to meteorology, but broadcast meteorology to PIO, there's really not a whole lot of difference other than I just don't get a lot of viewer emails about what I wear every day. So that's probably the biggest difference right now.
Hey, Ashley, James in Tulsa again. Thanks for being on with us. Fascinating story. As an aside, my parents both worked at General Dynamics in Fort Worth way back in the day. So I'm sure there's some long lost connection there too. Are you planning on pursuing your PhD? Have you started that? And as somebody who is, misery loves company, so the more the merrier.
Yes, I am planning on getting my PhD, and that should start next year. And a fun fact, at Auburn, they will cover your credits. So it will be part of my deal.
Nice.
It will be paid for.
I don't have that luxury, sadly.
See, there are some perks. I realized I forgot what the word perks meant working in television the last 2 to 3 years. So I forgot, oh, wait, there are perks. So that will be an advantage. So I am looking into that. I'm not exactly sure which direction. There's a couple of different paths I could possibly take. So we'll be looking into that, but I have to be employed for 1 full year. But that journey will start hopefully next August. So fall of 2024.
Congrats.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. That Ashley, that's amazing because I work in campus security here at UT at the University of Texas and work with them in the EOC activations. I think you'll love it. That's where I dropped out of television in 2012 and teaching and being at the University of Texas. Yeah, I'm a bouncer too, James. Anyway, no, I think it's great. That's really great story.
Well, thank you. And I will say being in the EOC has been great too. And just being able to leverage those relationships. And Troy, I'm sure you're familiar with that, but I mean, I've worked in both the Montgomery and Birmingham TV markets, which means I've covered about 38 counties in Alabama. And I have working relationships with all those emergency managers. I have relationships with both people from private sector to public sector. So bringing a lot of those relationships and connections to the university is super valuable. And that was really kind of what I mentioned in my interview is I'm not coming here because I was the girl on TV. I'm coming here to leverage relationships to really empower and to elevate the university and strengthen some of those relationships statewide. So I think that's been a fun part of my job, because quite frankly, even being an on-air meteorologist, I love being in the community. I love the people aspect of my job. And forecasting is what I was skilled at, but when my heart kind of came alive is when I got to be around people. And so I feel like that's really what I get to do every day now, and kind of build programs. And something that we're going to be doing in the 2024 year is building some parent relationships, doing some town hall talks with parents, talking about safety and things that we do, doing case studies on different incidences that we've had, how we respond, things like that, taking Q&A. So just building that network of people statewide, nationwide.
Well, that's key. I mean, absolutely, those relationships, Ashley, are key, and I congratulate you.
Well, thank you, Troy. Well, I might be emailing and or calling you for some advice along the way, if you don't mind.
I might be emailing or calling you.
Well, hey, I'll welcome it.
Okay.
But Dr. Kim Coco McLean, we enjoyed seeing your beautiful daughters. Thank you. The cuteness quotient on the show tonight has been off the scale. You sure you don't want to bring them back for a little bit longer and they can spend some time with
James from Tulsa here and me? We'll need a cuteness factor. So please bring the children back at some point. So
that was fun. Well, thank y'all for allowing her to be on here. That was sweet of y'all.
WeatherBrains is a family affair, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
The kids and pets and everyone, or occasional spouse, is very important to the show.
And speaking of that was also a big reason for the shift, because I've been in a chief role. I've covered that evening shift for much of my children's life. So, and although I have had a very gracious boss in the past that's allowed me to jump out and grab dinner or catch a bit of a ball game, there's things I miss, quite frankly. And as we all know in television, there's holidays that we miss, there's things that we miss. And my kids are young. I have 4 from the age of 9 to 2, and it's just a season where I want to be available. But what's really great is I will actually be freelancing here coming up in December and January back in Atlanta. So I'm not hanging up the microphone just yet, but I get to do it on my terms, which really actually kind of makes me value the TV aspect. And like I said, I left on such a positive note, and I know that is not the case for everyone in our field. So I'm grateful for that. So I still have a soft spot in my heart for being able to do it when I can. And I'm grateful for the opportunities when I get them.
Well, Ashley, I'm so glad you can join us and share all of this. And I'm so glad for the opportunity that you have to do what you're doing at Auburn. And I'm curious, is one of the case studies that you might be doing on a certain tornado outbreak that happened in March of 2019 that affected Lee County? Is that something that the university is thinking about? Because you all have a lot of students in vulnerable housing there, a lot. And that tornado that went just south of you all, I mean, it was just a matter of chance that it wasn't you. And I felt like that was a moment to reflect on.
Absolutely. So we do have, to Kim's point, we actually have one of the largest swaths of manufactured housing in the state that's located in Lee County, which is the county where Auburn University is. And it's just south of the university. And really that tornado, if you look at the big picture, really narrowly missed a very large part of that manufactured housing swath. And that being said, it has been studied. And actually, after a threat assessment, the number one threat at Auburn University is weather. So a big reason probably for me getting hired is my weather background, quite frankly. But in that, we definitely are doing those threat assessments. And I will say that we have a pretty robust warning system from our what we call AU alerts, and the numerous ways that we are alerting students and anyone that signs up for our services. And we probably have 7 different types of technology that we use to help alert and or warn students, faculty, and staff of inclement weather. So I think we have a pretty robust system in that. The big thing is education. The one thing that's a little bit different with my job now versus when you're a broadcast meteorologist and you're kind of broadcasting similar, even though there may be transit people moving in and out of your viewing area, my customer base changes every 4 years. So you're constantly educating and re-educating. So that's been something that's a little bit different. So it can feel a little bit mundane and repetitive, but how we get that information out to where we don't lose the interest. But speaking of the Beauregard tornado, one of the very interesting things that we learned, so we will ask students, and we call it Camp War Eagle. It's that for that freshman orientation, if you will, the summer prior to their first enrollment. And we'll generally ask the audience, how many people are from Alabama, how many people are from the Southeast that are aware of weather. And, about 60% raise their hand. Well, there's 30% of our students that are not from this area. So you get those parents from California who have never encountered a tornado, and it scares them to death, to which then I'll tell them, I go, you deal with wildfire and earthquakes. Like, that to me is a little bit more scary than the tornadoes. They're like, how in the world? I'm like, trust me, we at least have a pretty good idea when it comes to tornadoes. As long as you take action, like, there is a high probability that you will be safe. I said, but that fire or that earthquake coming out of nowhere, like, that to me is scarier, right? It's all about perspective, though. So educating those folks or our international students. So that's been one of the big areas that we really try to cinch up some of our communication. And that's something that I'll be doing over the next year or so, is helping to integrate better strategies that we can communicate with some of our international students, because, we're really kind of coming back from COVID in a way. I mean, even though we've had a couple of, I would say, air quotes, semi-normal years, really higher education, I think, has taken a little bit more of a lag, just because we also have a lot of different cultures. We have a lot of different countries who might have had extended COVID policies and protocols. So we're just now seeing a lot of those students return to campus. So we're having to do a lot to not only educate kind of that 1 to 4 year group of students, but then within that, you have some cultural differences, language differences. So it's been really kind of fascinating on how we communicate things like weather, and using Beauregard as a great example for that too.
So Ashley, you mentioned April 27th a moment ago, which is, of course, a red letter day for many of us in the southeastern United States. Talk about your memories of that day and how it impacted you and your weather team.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning earlier, I was a very new chief in Montgomery. So this was shortly after I had come back from Atlanta, and I think I was barely back on air at the WAKA in Montgomery for maybe a year or so. And April 27th happens, and we were prepared for the day. I would say, from the standpoint of, we knew there was going to be severe weather, right? But the gravitas is what you can't really predict and project. So as the day is unfolding, most of the storms are to our north, outside of our standard viewing area. So protocol, we weren't going to be on air. But as we saw the storms approaching Tuscaloosa, my news director and we did make the decision to get on air in Montgomery, because so many of the families that we served in that area had students that were attending the University of Alabama. So I got on, and actually, I used James Spann's cameras. It was the Alpha Skycam network at the time. And so we had access into those cameras. So I was actually showing the exact same camera that James was showing at the same time while we were on air. And I just remember that being a pivotal moment when I saw that tornado advancing towards that camera. It froze, but right before it froze, you could see the transformers just sparking. And it was just, you could see a multi-vortex tornado forming. And it was the moment where you just had this gut feeling that people were losing their lives. I mean, to be quite matter of fact about it. And I stepped off the air, and I remember taking this huge deep breath, and it was probably 5 seconds, felt much longer, but it was just this moment where I felt kind of a heaviness, to be honest. And it was the emotions of it. It was just kind of all of that. And like I said, I was younger. I had covered severe weather events before, but of course, nothing like this, right? So I ended up getting back on air, finished our coverage. But what a lot of people, I mean, that was the focus of the day. But what ended up happening is that was a long day for us in South Alabama, because we had several more tornadoes that hit Lake Martin, and EF4 hit in our viewing area. So there was a lot more of that line of tornadoes that moved into South Alabama that day. So that outbreak did continue into our viewing area. So it made for quite a long day. So I remember that. So in addition to the emotional piece of it, there was just the physical exhaustion after all of that. But I remember when I stepped off air in that 5 seconds and I got back on, I felt like a different person. And I felt like my delivery at that point was not one of science and explaining the radar. It was one of service. And that knew at that moment that my calling was really to talk to the people and to the parents and to, and to help people make good decisions. And that's what really changed it for me. So from that point forward, got really involved with whether it would be the National Weather Service and helping with storm spotter classes, or continuing with any type of education programs that I could do, whether it was civic organizations or whether it was school talks and all of that. And so that really became where my heart was in weather. It was really about teaching people, and it became less about what I could do on television, but more about what was the takeaway. If people didn't take something away from my forecast, then there was something for me to learn from that. So that was really the pivotal moment and why I did what I did. And so every severe weather event, even with all of my teams that I've been able to be a part of ever since, I always said that was our mission. It was the people on the other end. It wasn't about fancy camera work. It wasn't about how many people can be on delivering, to be life-saving action, that we were clear, concise, that messaging. And that was what was most important. But again, that day is when it changed for me. And I could almost just feel the change going from more of a cerebral approach to weather to more of a service-based approach to weather.
I didn't want to tell James I was going to eat some Panda Express while he was feeling poorly before the show. So I muted so y'all wouldn't have to enjoy my partaking in dinner here. But actually, that was a terrible day. We obviously were all working. I had a junior at the University of Alabama, and I had alerted him a couple hours before, you're going to deal with a supercell about this time, and, had him be in a good position. But when that tornado developed on the camera, and we've been following it because of John Olshew, one of our associates, he was chasing that storm. And that, the sky around the tornado cleared, you could see the funnel, and it was just mean. It was not even just a regular funnel. It just looked terrible. And, I was, trying to convey as much information as I could as quickly as I could, but keep a line open to Tuscaloosa because suddenly one of your family members is involved. And when he was okay and he said, it passed just 2 blocks south of us, I'm going to help, I could put that away and, just, worry about it coming to Birmingham because it was, coming to us. And I almost let the darn thing sneak up on us where we were working because we were so entranced with giving the information that I, realized at the last minute that the darn mesocyclone was going to come right over us. And fortunately, it had lifted by the time it got there. But it was just a terrifying day. So that's obviously one of the biggest days. What other events stand out in your career, Ashley, that you remember the most?
Wow. Interestingly enough, Beauregard sticks out, even though I was in Birmingham at the time when that happened, because I had so much connection to Lee County and Auburn and following that storm system. So that was definitely one. I mean, I remember a Christmas tornado that we had in South Alabama. We've had, and then there were, was it February or March, the Fultondale tornado. We were covering that storm system. The Prattville tornadoes, that was when I was in Montgomery, and we covered that. And so there have been definitely several severe weather events. I've been pretty spared from most of the hurricane activity. We've often had to send go teams to go travel to a lot of those hurricanes, but outside of some heavy rainfall, what's interesting is some of the flash flooding events have been most notable. Actually, when I was in Atlanta, one of the major flooding events I was able to cover, and actually did a live shot for Al Roker at the time. And like the little girl inside of me was bubbling up. I was like, act normal, Ashley, act normal. You're doing meteorology just like he is. But I remember being wearing waders and walking out to some knee-deep high water in someone's front yard covering the flooding event. That would have been, was that 2009 or 2010? When that was. So that was a pretty significant flooding event in Atlanta. And of course, Snowmageddon was huge, but I was rolling off air starting maternity leave. I felt so absent. That was kind of like this crazy feeling for that too, because I wanted to be there at the station helping everybody, but I was predisposed, if you will. So, but yeah, from the ice storms, we've had obviously the tornado events, and then hurricanes, flooding. We've pretty much, I think I've covered a lot just being here in Alabama. I always say you really get a taste of everything here. I mean, outside of some extreme blizzards, I mean, we get some of the most wide-ranging weather in Alabama, which people kind of think is crazy. They're like, how in the world? There's no way. But when I start going through all of the major events, I think it surprises people sometimes.
Yeah, that is for sure. So tell us what a typical day is like now for you, Ashley, because this is a whole different world to us.
Yeah, so I have children that love to wake up early. I don't know how this happened, but they do, which is fine. So my day starts at around 5:30. Now I have a great helpmate, and so I go to the gym in the morning. Now, full disclosure, the business that he started is a gym. So I do go to our family gym in the morning, and sometimes so we trade off days. He goes or I go, and then the other gets all the kids ready. And then my day starts, my work day is from 7:45 to 4:45. I will have to say I had to get used to that. The other thing I'm going to have to get used to, and James, you might appreciate this, is I get 2 full weeks off at Christmas. I don't know what to do with myself. I know, right? And what's so crazy is I need to take a day off in November, and I was trepidatiously asking my supervisor the other day about a day off, and he was like, why are you so apprehensive? I'm like, I'm sorry, PTSD. I was never allowed to take off in November, sweeps. And he was like, it's okay. So we got a good chuckle out of that. And he's like, guess what? You can actually take off in any month now that you work in higher education. And he goes, and you get holidays off. And I'm like, okay, this is going to take me a minute. And he goes, and you get rollover. You might not have had that at your other job either. But yeah, my normal day hours wise, 7:45 to 4:45. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is I'm finding our key stakeholders on campus and even in our county. I've taken some PIO classes. I'm really looking forward to actually going through the FEMA PIO training all the way to the master's level. There's only 4 in the whole state of Alabama that have that certificate. So I've started that journey. It's a 2-year journey. And so I'm hoping to finish that up at I guess it would be sometime mid 2025 when that would be able to be completed. So I'm super excited about that. But in the meantime, I'm building relationships. I'm doing a lot of listening on campus, finding what our threat assessments are, and helping to basically create safety strategies for each of our departments on campus, because each of our colleges kind of is their own silo. And so I'm trying to connect the dots because campus safety is the one touch point that impacts all of those areas. So we're just trying to make sure that our communication is streamlined and that each college or department isn't creating their own silo and then not, whether not communicating or has a different policy or protocol, we're making sure certain things are in place. So that's been neat to be able to do that. And then also, as we get ready for football season, which is really kind of cool to start during football season, I get to participate in all of the emergency planning and safety for all of game day. So that's a lot of fun. I give the weather at our Tuesday meetings leading up to games. So that's always an adventure. And then I get to be a part of the game day kind of procedure, and I give a quick weather update to all the refs. So that's fun, right? a little fun aside there. But yeah, that's kind of what my standard day is. Like I said, it's a lot of relationship building right now, listening, doing a lot of listening, and then taking that back to the drawing board and creating strategies that help our university be more successful at communicating crisis and finding out what those threats are.
That's fantastic. Days off during sweeps is what a cool concept. Now, I'll admit I cheat a little bit for my team, and even though make sure nobody's watching, I'll give them a day or two off during sweeps if they really want it. But yeah, I'd catch it if I tried it. But yeah, days off and sweeps
with me.
Yeah. Do you need an assistant? I'm asking for a friend.
So, okay, if no one's listening, I might be able to be building out a team here shortly. So stay tuned. There may be some people I have under my belt. I have one fabulous college intern. I don't even know why they call him intern. She's a paid employee, but that's just what they designate the title. So I have one employee right now, which is kind of cool. But yes, we will be expanding our staff. Hopefully, we are going through a reorganization right now, so it's kind of an interesting time to have gotten hired. But cool things are ahead. So stay tuned.
So my email is Jen Naramore CharlieTalk.com.
I got you.
I'm looking for a day off, and I'm looking for a new football team, so I can.
Yeah, well,
Auburn.
I'm not so sure this
And
is
Auburn
working.
has
That's okay. No, that's
Auburn's
all right.
got two names because what this whole War Eagle and Tiger thing. I'm so
Okay,
confused
so,
by that.
so Tiger is our mascot, and War Eagle is our battle cry.
How'd that happen?
Well, if I will tell you actually. So, one of the first football games we played against the University of Georgia post Civil War, there was an eagle flying on the field, and there was a student that had rehabbed. You know, of course, it's all folklore, right? But had rehabbed an eagle. The eagle had taken flight during the middle of the game. The eagle lands on the field, and it was shortly post-war. So they started saying, War Eagle lands on the field. Auburn wins the game, and the rest is history, as they say. So War Eagle became our battle cry, but the tiger is our actual mascot. And here's another fun fact for you. So if you've ever studied university, so the university or Clemson and Auburn have very similar kind of buildings on campus. Our main building looks very similar. Our very first president went on to be the president at Clemson, and he took our colors with them. And so he took one of our jerseys, which was orange and blue, but he took an old jersey which looked like more like a purple because it was a faded navy blue, and so that's how their colors became orange and purple at Clemson. But one of their main buildings on campus looks like ours. It's called Sanford Hall. So we are actually sister colleges with Clemson. So there's a fun fact for you, and they're also the Tigers.
Well, I would love to hear you, Ashley, and Troy talk about, preparing for football games, because obviously football is a huge part of both universities and a very vulnerable situation, for anybody who's attending a major college football game. So, Troy, why don't you go first, and then Ashley, you circle back in and fill in anything that you want to add from Auburn.
I think Ashley, that probably people would be surprised what you and I see, and the people that we sit with in an EOC. When you have thousands of people in a stadium, Bill, you said it, you're in a position. Some of my best friends, and always have been, are some of the folks in law enforcement here in Austin and Travis County, and get to be with them. But I'll tell you, we have some great people here, and Ashley knows this, that in those stadium seatings, because of the large population, we also have the FBI, Joint Terrorism Task Force. They're present there with us, and I have some great friends in that organization. But I sometimes tell people, Ashley, if they knew everything that we plan for, and we pretty much plan for, we want to be proactive. And there may be things you look at that we plan for, in a sense, in planning sessions, that you say, well, it's not necessarily something, well, it doesn't make any difference. It's still part of university plans. We have a lot of that stuff there. I think people would be surprised what's going on in the EOC, because actually our responsibility is for our students, our faculty, our staff, and our university visitors, our guests that we have. And you know what? Game day is a big guest day.
Yeah, and that's to your point too, talking about what goes on behind the scenes. Is your EOC located in the stadium during the game, or do you have a booth in the stadium, or is yours out?
Yeah, we have we've got, and James from Tulsa points this out. We're located adjacent, just to the west, no more than a quarter mile west of I-35, which I don't know if y'all know this or not, but that highway, it has a little traffic on it. And that worries us to some degree. But to answer your question, Ashley, our EOC originally was in the University of Texas Police Department, which was in the building adjacent to the northeast of the stadium. Very happy that we've had the support from university leadership, that we just finished in the last year a brand new EOC. They have moved us further away from the stadium now. And I think that's important, and people that were really encouraging us to do that anyway, to get away from, in case something happened, we need to be able to continue to operate. And so we have a brand new EOC, and our campus security, emergency management operations, while we still work underneath the University of Texas Police Department, our campus security offices, emergency management, are in a fairly remote part of the campus on the other side of the interstate, to the east of the interstate. We're still within a quarter to half mile. So I still go over, like Ashley pointed out, we do briefings for law enforcement and for stadium ushers. We do that. But I mean, I don't know, Ashley, it's sort of, I don't think people generally have an idea what goes on as far as we're concerned. You and I are concerned, or in the EOC, as far as going so far out of our way to make sure that everyone is safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so it's interesting. So Auburn has a unique setup in the sense that we're only one of a handful, and I don't even know the number, but I know it's low. We actually do not have a university police. We used to, and we dissolved that about 20 years ago, but we have a partnership with the city. So it's kind of more of a town and gown interaction. And we actually have a contract with Auburn City Police Department, but in our campus safety office, which is located in the shadows of Jordan Stadium. So we can actually see the stadium right there. We're one parking lot away. That's where our EOC is located. We actually have patrolling officers that are there throughout the day. So we do still have them on campus. We have a precinct in the central part of campus as well. So that does make it a little bit interesting, because we actually have police, Auburn City Police, that work for the university on a contracted basis. But as you were mentioning too, with the EOC, the reason I was a little bit interested, we have a new, the building that we're in now is probably just a handful of years old, can withstand an EF4 tornado. I mean, it's all the things, right? It's a great building, but our EOC probably seats somewhere between 30 to 40 individuals on a game day, but we have 911 dispatch in our EOC. And we have a representative from all of the different agencies that help support our game day experience. So from our Lee County emergency managers to our first responders, we have police, fire, EMS also represented. Plus we have someone from the event company that is hired by athletics that's in there that handles all of the social media channels. We have someone doing traffic. So we have one of these stakeholders from each of those departments in our EOC, but we also have a booth inside the stadium that has probably maybe 10 folks. And each of those are also handling. So any of the dialogue that we have between the EOC and the stadium goes through our booth there, and then they can disseminate out any help or assistance that's needed, and they can communicate with our first aid there. So, but that, interestingly enough, that used to be our only spot that we had some of this emergency communication until, I mean, several years ago when the whole methodology changed and there was a much greater need but you talk about, bomb threats. I mean, we're preparing for bomb threats. We're preparing for active shooters. We're preparing for crowd control. We're preparing for severe weather. This is actually kind of something really cool that Auburn has done this year. So when I started, we were doing a heat study. So we actually have 15 heat sensors that are in the stadium measuring wet bulb temp, and they're measuring temperature, dew points, all of that. And so what we're doing is we're finding where there are sensitive heat areas in the stadium that would essentially where people could be more prone to heat illnesses. And so what we're doing is trying to mitigate that by sending more personnel to those areas ahead of time. So if people do suffer from any of those heat illnesses, we actually have staff that's already there and ready to get any of those people to a cooler spot. And we've actually installed cooling stations around the stadium. We provide free water throughout the game. We actually allow water bottles into the game now, and we give free water bottles to the students as they're entering the stadium. So we're doing a lot more heat precaution. That's been actually our biggest threat during our football games is the heat, go figure. So that's something that we have to plan a lot for. And that's most of the calls that we get are mostly just heat related calls these first few games, especially.
One of the interesting things, and James from Tulsa brings this up in chat off the side, but one of the amazing that people talk to us, and actually they probably say, well, it's going to be sunny Saturday and 65. So why you even have to work? One of the things that our law enforcement is big on is they want to know what the prevailing wind is in Austin, because of what James said from Tulsa. Prevailing wind direction, something happens on that interstate less than a quarter mile away. And if it's releasing some type of either smoke or some type of chemical, the stadium is right there. It's just on the west side of the interstate. So there are little things like that, but we enjoy such a great, same thing as you, Ashley. We enjoy such a great relationship. We have our own police, but and Chief Eve Stevens is best ever. our chief there, but we have enjoy a great relationship with Travis County, City of Austin Police, also our great folks from the Texas Department of Public Safety are here to help us with drone operations.
Yeah.
And so it's really amazing to me. I so much enjoy that sometimes 8, 9, 10 hours when we go and set up on the EOC. It really is, to me, I've gotten where I truly love that.
Now, Troy, if they tell me it's sunny and 65 and they don't need me, I don't ask. I'm out the door and I'm in my seats. So
Yeah, there we go, Ashley. That's good.
You can use the weather stem that we've got at the top of the building to tell you your weather.
Yeah. And we've got weather stem here too, Ashley. Got to commend the people at weather stem, and they have a nice setup with the camera and weather sensors and that sort of thing. So again, it's a great situational awareness tool.
It is. And, Ken Ham wants to do a lot more eye-to-eye contact. So some of his philosophy as we move forward is to build some of those relationships back and build them stronger as they are allowing service to use some of their more of their forecasting technology to take away some of that human element just a bit. But in that, we have a seat available for our National Weather Service partners out of Birmingham, to which, again, hey, y'all want to do the weather? I'll go watch that game. No problem. But that's been kind of fun too, is to be able to take those relationships that I've had for years with our Birmingham partners, with the National Weather Service there and down in Mobile, and allow them a seat at the table, because, for them, that's really kind of neat too, to be able to have a seat at that table. I don't know about y'all, Troy, but do y'all have National Weather Service folks that come into your EOC on game day?
It's a little tough because of this little thing called I-35, and the office actually for Austin, San Antonio is down at New Braunfels. So it's about 70 miles away, and that's like 10 travel days from Austin. Just joking, but I'm not joking.
But about right.
Yeah, but we always have them available. We actually maintain 800 megahertz radio frequency to the office. In addition to having them on chat, they're notified of all of our activations in real time. So they're very much our partners. I always say they're our next set of eyes. I'll say, I need you to work with me as the next set of eyes.
Now, I will say one of the things that I have found to be the most interesting, though, is when we were preparing for the season and we were walking through our severe weather policies for the game. So I was unaware of this until I arrived, that it depends on what TV station is broadcasting as to how quickly we react, because we actually, according to the gentleman that's kind of in charge of our athletics, he basically said we defer to ESPN or CBS because a lot of times they're union workers, and if there's lightning close by, he's like, they drop that mask quick, and so he said we really lean on them. But then what was interesting to me is the number of different lightning detection products that can be in the stadium at one time. So, because my question basically was, well, who has authority, right? Like, who's the decision maker? And essentially he was like, it ain't us. And I thought that was very interesting. Now, we can obviously guide if storms are approaching, and we can utilize our forecasting ability to help mitigate and help get people to a safe place ahead of danger, right? But if that lightning strikes and their software picks up on it and ours has a 5-second delay or whatnot, they're dropping, and we don't want to miss a play. We don't want to miss anything, because now you've got, replays and all of that stuff. And it happened for us in an Iron Bowl a few years ago. We continue to play on about 30 seconds. A lightning strike was 12 miles away. Someone in our EOC said, let's continue, let's finish out this play, and then we'll get to safety. Well, apparently the TV, it might have been, I don't remember which TV network was carrying the game, but they went and dropped it. And so there was a lot of pushback. So I think it was down to like one camera, and they decided never again. Like, we're never going to make our decision again. We'll always lean on the TV station. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that.
But I think, would you be willing to say, though, Ashley, I mean, this is sort of the way I look at it. I mean, it goes back to the athletics director, and also back to the people up in the ops box in the stadium, which is usually university people. But would you think it'd be fair to say, Ashley, that you and we're in a sense advisory in nature? I mean, Ashley doesn't make enough, and I can tell you Troy doesn't make enough to make those calls. That needs to be someone over there, but I'm willing to advise them. and tell you what they need to do. And I'll tell you, at the University of Texas, so far, everything we said to them through emergency management out of the EOC, they have always take heed. But I'll tell you, some of the quickest people to react to it sometimes and have authority as well, and that's the officials. The officials on the field, they can actually they can say that's it. And now my whole thing is, I hope I beat the officials, and I hope I beat the television people, and we kind of go from there. But it's again, you got to remember, we're doing this for 100,000 or whatever people in a stadium. We're doing it for their safety.
Absolutely. And I don't know about y'all, we unlock buildings around our campus. So the way Auburn is these football stadiums right in the middle of campus. Yeah. And so you have buildings all the way around it. And so we will actually start sending people to unlock those buildings, and hopefully right with enough time of the forecast, we can get people out, because our concourses are wide open. So we don't even really like to just tell people to get out of the bowl and into the concourse. We really like to evacuate them completely out of the building and into safer structures if a storm is approaching. So we have to plan for all of that. So to your point,
same here.
I'm very grateful that I work for a team that trusts our decision-making ability. Thankfully, knock on wood, we haven't had that situation occur so far this year. We only have 2 more home games left. This weekend looks pretty benign, but anything could happen for the Iron Bowl. So one more game, but maybe we'll get out of the season without any severe weather. So that would be fingers crossed on that one.
Ashley, if I have to hear one more thing about the kick six, I may be like James and throw up my Panda Express over here. But
I can tell you the story. Okay. It'll only take me a second.
Kim, I know you were just at the International Association of Emergency Managers, and this discussion's got to be fascinating right here. Anything that you picked up while you were out in Long Beach that you could share? And Dr. Neal, were you there too at the same event? No, different event.
No, I wasn't there. I missed all the fun.
I'll tell you something that I'm interested to hear from you all, that was a big topic of conversation out there, was actually about cybersecurity. And there are times where weather events, especially in the space weather realm, they can look like cyber attacks. And so one of the big things that was a bit of discussion at this like security weather interface was, how do we stay on top of all of this when we have so many different kinds of threats and so many novel threats? And how do you guys even determine what is a credible threat anymore when there's so much that is in that sphere that can be produced that even looks so real? So I would love to know from you all if that's something that's been a part of your discussions or operations.
Well, Ashley, I mean, I give so much credit. I mean, Ashley and I assume, and Ashley, tell me if I'm wrong, our expertise is in weather and in that sort of thing. So we're going to deal with that. But I mean, the Austin Police Department, Travis County, Texas DPS, University of Texas PD, just like Auburn PD, what a great, amazing group of men and women that really have so much expertise with that, Kim. The preparedness in that stadium and at Auburn, I can tell you, for Ashley speak up on her own, but I'm telling you, preparation for a ball game begins 3 or 4 days ahead of time from the law enforcement standpoint and from the safety standpoint.
Yeah, we actually are going to meet on Tuesday, and we have probably 100 people that attend that meeting, with the majority of them in the safety space of some kind. Some of them leading, because we of course have to have contracted out security. So we have someone representing them. We have our own staff from campus safety. We have our law enforcement fire chiefs there. So that way we come into this meeting every Tuesday before a home game. It's an hour, and we walk through minute by minute what's going to be happening from our Tiger Walk, which is 2 hours before kickoff, all the way through the whistle. We talk about everything that will happen minute by minute. And we plan and prepare for that, and then open up the floor. Our emergency manager generally speaks, and we have a couple of the other stakeholders in the room that will give us a little bit of a briefing. But to Troy's point, yeah, there's lots of planning. And Ken, you bring up an interesting point about the cybersecurity. I am grateful that we have a very robust cybersecurity team at Auburn. So that kind of falls into their lane a little bit more, like Troy. My area of expertise is a bit more tangible in the forecasting space. So I think I would need some guidance on the cybersecurity aspect of it. But we do have cybersecurity teams that are constantly monitoring all of that, the cyber elements during really any day, but especially like a game day and something like that.
Absolutely. And I'll pivot here in a second from this, but there are two things I carried away that were really interesting. And, I'll expand on the space weather piece. It turns out that when there's a geomagnetic storm or radiation event, then one of the big outcomes is disrupted satellite communications. And that can look like a cyber attack. So it's really, really important for us to have a determination really quickly, which is the source of this. And so I know that it's a little bit outside of our lane in a way, but I think we're going to be called upon as weather professionals to know more about what's going on in our magnetosphere and ionosphere, as we're so dependent for our communications infrastructure on this stuff that's flying not just in upper Earth orbit, but in these lower Earth orbits where it really can start to get influenced by more of there can be drag on these little CubeSats that's induced from the geomagnetic storm. So it's a fascinating thing, and it's just sort of shifting, I think, a little bit of my thinking. This past week shifted my thinking a little bit about where our weather and emergency management nexus is and where it's going to be going. So I'll be interested in, you'll debrief with folks. I'm sure that's something that they might bring up. So that was an interesting feature.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kim, one thing that we have at the ready, and I'm not as good. Ashley's probably better with this than I am, but we have our Space Weather Center. We have part of NOAA that is there who can give us at least heads up on some of this. I'm just not that good with what all they do. I need to probably spend some time with that, but at least we're now getting that tool. And I think for a long time, that agency was kind of hidden in a way, not hidden, but I mean, it just wasn't very visible. But I think as time goes along, we better be interested in what they have to say, because it's not a question of if, it's more of a question of when.
Yes. Absolutely. Especially as I've learned now, getting to work with the Space Weather Prediction Center, the solar cycle is on the upswing. And so we're, just getting more stuff being flung at us from the sun at the exact same time as we're putting more crap in orbit that's making all of our systems really, really vulnerable. What a beautiful, beautiful idea. And the science of even what's going on up there and the observations it's like the Wild West. It is magnificent. So yes, we should have a whole show on space weather. Let's get Bill on here. It'll be great. So I did want to pivot really quickly. I know that we're going to be wrapping in a couple of minutes, but Ashley, I'm really interested in whether you have had the opportunity to chat with your local forecast office some, because something that could be interesting to see how maybe it could weave into, your operations there at Auburn. They're looking to put out more probabilistic forecast information. And they're really interested in talking with universities, especially. So wondering if that's something you're following, if you're thinking about that, looking at the way that we're transitioning from deterministic forecasts into the realm of possibility space, and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so actually have. So that was probably the easiest relationship I just maintained. I left work on a Friday in television, started this job on a Monday. Literally, I had a weekend off. It was good for me, but that neither here nor there. But that was just one relationship that just continued right from Friday into Monday. So I've been able to engage these conversations because one of the products that I was not as privy to being on the broadcasting side were these forecasts that they give the EOC, the Emergency Operations Centers, during game day. And so for the Birmingham National Weather Service, it was a red, yellow, green scale, and it was essentially threat zones. So the threat of rain, if the threat of rain was within a certain range, it would turn red. If it was within a certain range, it would be yellow and green, green for low, yellow for moderate, and red for high. Well, it was interesting. One of our very first games, there was they had put out a forecast that was pretty high. It was red across the board. And I said, guys, it's not going to rain that much. So my personal forecast is actually very different, which allowed for a nice dialogue with the National Weather Service in Birmingham, just about this product that they provide. Now, keep in mind, they are providing a product from the National Weather Service to generally a group of non-trained meteorologists. These are emergency managers, emergency responders, and EMS. So this is not necessarily people that are meteorologists. So they just take it, and it's just another data point for them. But for me, it's a forecasting point. I'm thinking, wait, we need to reconcile these differences. So that's been an interesting conversation, which gets back to more of the relationship building side. And that's why there's more of a desire to have a seat at the table. And we've actually always had, I have learned this too, we've always had a seat at the table for the National Weather Service at our office. Now, they are still a healthy hour and a half drive from Birmingham to where Auburn is located. We're probably on the fringe. Well, we are, not probably, we're on the fringe of their coverage area, but they cover Tuscaloosa and Auburn, which are pretty much the two opposite ends of their coverage area. But they have said in 2024 they would like to have someone from the office in both of those EOCs during game day. So I do think it's opened up some interesting conversation. I think that it's going to create some dialogue as we move forward on how we use that probabilistic forecasting. And because I think the biggest gap for me is the difference between a trained meteorologist looking at that information and processing it one way versus a non-trained meteorologist or someone who's not trained in meteorology looking at that, because what I say may be very different than what that probabilistic forecast product that they provide looks like. Because now a computer model is going to say, hey, the criteria for rain falls into this threat zone based on a model that this is the output. And so it automatically gives it a color delineation. And then all of a sudden it looks like you're going to have a washout game when that's really not the reality. So that will be something very interesting, I think, as we dive deeper into this, how we get into the weeds of the forecast, the minute by minute, the hour by hours, especially when you're talking, and I'll be specific to game day. I mean, it's the minutes that matter. We're not forecasting for an entire day and saying, oh, it's going to rain at some point during the day. No, we need to know if it's going to rain from 2:30 to 6:30. And we need to know if it's going to storm at halftime, if all those sousaphones can be on the field, and if the marching band can be out, if the football, if we need to get, so all the things. So I think it'll be interesting. I think it will make for some good dialogue as we move forward. I think that there are ways to amplify the messaging, but I think this really gets back to the communication piece and how we are going to communicate this new way of doing weather. And I don't think it's bad. I don't think this is even like a conversation of good, bad. I think that this is a conversation of how is our communication style going to be different, and what key players are you going to have at the table to help discern that information and then disseminate the information in a way that people can understand and take action if need be.
Actually, I've done a little bit of work with Oklahoma State University. That's where I'm going to school now. And I keep a spreadsheet, and I think it's Office 365, but I've set it up where if I update it at any time, Oklahoma State Emergency Management gets a message that I've updated it. And I've got boxes of QPF, and they used it in the softball tournament. They've occasionally used it for planning purposes for football. But one of the things that they were interested in was getting the team back from the road game at Iowa State and the aviation weather forecast with that. So it's you nailed it with the information we provide being tailored to what the receiver wants to hear. And I think we're finally getting there with decision support that has been so long in coming. It's like, what information, for so many years, we just didn't ask, what information do you need?
Yeah. Well,
it's figuring out who your audience is and then tailoring your product and your services to your customer.
And part of that, guys, is that we've seen a change in the Lightning Toolkit, which is by the National Weather Service, that they sort of maintain that we're beginning to see some changes now, that if you have a meteorologist, Ashley, myself, James, in an EOC, in the past, it's been this 30-minute rule. Whereas you have a lightning strike, you wait 30, and if you go 29 more minutes, you have another flash, you wait another 30. Well, what they're saying now, or what the Lightning tool set is saying, if you have a trained meteorologist in the EOC that's physically in the EOC, then if that storm is moving away and moving outside your 8 or 10 mile radius, and there's no other weather out there, then perhaps, and once you clear it out beyond 8 to 10 miles, we can get back to play a little bit earlier. And that's something that coaches, at least they really would like to see. And we've been, this 30-minute rule has been something just roll on, but we finally, through Kevin Clazel, a lot of his work up at OU has brought this up, and we kind of pushed this in the Big 12 a few years ago. And I think you're going to see some changes in that in the years come along, but there is a requirement to have a meteorologist in the EOC. Otherwise, it's a rolling 30 minutes.
James, I think the folks at Oklahoma State are a little extra sensitive just because of that tragedy they had several years ago with the folks associated with the basketball team, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's important for every university to keep this in mind. Even, I mean, I think anybody that does anything outside.
Well, I love this conversation. This is fabulous. Ashley, one more question for you. We've had Dr. David Roush on the show before. Talk about the great work he's doing there at your university.
Okay, so he's the one I've been talking to about getting my PhD. So he's doing some really fascinating research. And for those of you, I see some head nods. So you might have heard him speak a bit. So he is a structural engineer at Auburn. So he teaches there, and he's doing some amazing research and essentially studying how buildings are built, homes are built. And he does some great, when he speaks, he'll use some great visuals where he will show 2x4s that are nailed together, screwed together, and then he'll ask somebody to come up to the front of the room, and he said, pull this apart, and you think you're going to have to muscle and pull, and then you just snap it in two, and you think, oh my goodness. And that's how some houses are assembled, so it blows your mind, right? So what he's doing is he's done a lot of studying on everything from manufactured houses to stick-built homes to brick-built homes. And so what he's doing is he's doing structural analysis on all of this as tornadoes will be impacting buildings and what impact that has. But what's really cool about the research that he's doing at Auburn, they just built this amazing research facility, and it's large enough to build scaled down, but pretty full-size structures. But what's neat is that you can actually fill the building with the soil from where you're testing this building. So you can build a scaled down model in the soil. So, whether it's Georgia red clay or it's the black belt soil here in Alabama, you can actually fill it with the particular soil, build the house on top of that, and then you can blast it with wind, and you can study the impacts that had. So it's kind of cool. So he's really, moreover than just the 3D space of the building, he's really studying kind of all of, does soil affect that and how things are built. And I mean, he's talked, some of his research talks about how mobile homes are anchored and things of that nature. But he's doing some really fascinating research as it pertains to structural engineering and weather.
Well, tell him hello for us. We sure do love what he's doing. And Gabe and Ashley, hope you'll stick around. We've got just about 25 minutes to go here. We need to take a break, though, for a moment for our recorded segments. We'll hear from Tony Rice with the astronomy report. Jen will give us a fascinating story from her tornado history, and we'll hear from our friends at the AMS weather band. Then we'll come back. Jen will have an email from our Estonia correspondent. We'll do a weather roundup, and then we'll share our picks of the week as WeatherBrains rolls on.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
One of the highlights of the autumn sky is the constellation Pegasus, actually an asterism within Pegasus. You know what constellations are, stars that form a supposedly recognizable pattern in the sky. Some of those can be easier to find, like Orion the Hunter. The three bright stars in Orion's belt certainly help there. Many others, though, are not so recognizable, especially from light-polluted suburban skies. Now, constellations, they're a formal thing, 88 of them defined by a group of professional astronomers. That formality is necessary for consistency in how they communicate with each other about what they're seeing. Constellations form neighborhoods in the sky, but you probably know a lot more asterisms. These are far more recognizable and less formalized patterns within the constellations. Those three stars within Orion's belt, they're a good example. So is Orion's sword. So are the Big and Little Dippers, the most recognizable parts of the constellation Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, respectively. This week, though, you can find Pegasus using its asterism, the Great Square. And you don't need an app or a star map to do it. Just what you already know, and using the same techniques that astronomers have used for centuries. Star hopping. Start with the Big Dipper on the northern horizon. Follow the outer bowl of the Dipper up to Polaris at the end of the handle of the Little Dipper. Continue that line up past the constellation Cassiopeia, which looks like a sideways M this time of year, and you'll reach the 4 stars of the Great Square, which make up the body of Pegasus. Slightly dimmer stars extend below, making up the 4 legs, and the neck and head extend from the top left. You can continue your geometric tour to the left with the Great Triangle, also known as the Summer Triangle, for its prominence during summer nights, but it's visible in the evening sky through December. This asterism is made up of the brightest stars across 3 constellations: Cygnus the Swan, Aquila the Eagle, and Lyra the Harp. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, November 15th, 1989 was a heartbreaking day for Huntsville, Alabama. An F4 tornado hit the southern part of the city, crossing through a busy business section and heavily populated residential area at the time of afternoon rush hour. 21 people were killed, 18 died in the tornado, and 3 others later from injuries. 57% of the deaths occurred in automobiles. For the storm data summary, quote, most of those killed in the cars were in the process of performing normal tasks, as opposed to fleeing in or seeking the automobiles for safety. Over 450 people were injured in this tornado event. Along the 18.5-mile path, 249 homes, 80 businesses, 3 churches, and 10 public buildings were destroyed. The National Weather Service in Huntsville has an extensive collection of videos, reports, and written interviews on their website. I was reading through the interviews, and this one, 20 years after the event, from James Johnson, stuck out to me. It shows the impacts from a major tornado don't just last for a few minutes or a few days, they last a lifetime. From Mr. Johnson, I do not remember the actual tornado. It hit us while we were driving north on the parkway, and I was knocked out upon impact with the twister. We were just south of Airport Road. The next thing I remember, I was in Huntsville Hospital being asked if I was on any medications, and then I was told to go back to sleep. My late wife, Rosa, was taken to Humana Hospital. She was found laying in a ditch on South Parkway. She died due to her injuries 63 days after the tornado on January 17, 1990. I was moved to Health South Rehabilitation at the end of November and remained there until the 3rd week of January 1990. By mid-February, I returned to work on Redstone Arsenal and worked up to 4 years ago, at which time I retired. With age creeping up on me, my injuries have placed me in a wheelchair most of the time. This has been my life for the past 20 years. If you enjoy WeatherBrains, there's a global community of thousands of weather enthusiasts you'll want to join. The American Meteorological Society's Weather Band at amsweatherband.org. Connect with weather enthusiasts all over the world, as well as 10,000 plus members of the AMS. You can swap questions, data, and stories with researchers, broadcasters, storm chasers, and more. Join interactive weather webinars, test your trivia knowledge, enter your photos in the WeatherBand photo contest, or attend the annual Jamposium. WeatherBand is a place to nurture and share your love of weather. Get full membership for just $12 per year by going to amsweatherband.org.
And I just was thinking that tornado happened in November. What are you talking about it for, Jen? It's November. It's almost Thanksgiving. And I can't believe it. You've got the email in bag tonight, and it's not very full, but it's got an important missive from our Estonia correspondent.
That's right. We heard from Tarmo, and this is an awesome email. As you might know, there's going to be a solar eclipse in the U.S. next year. Well, guess what? Over the weekend, I booked my plane tickets, and I, too, am coming to watch the eclipse along with a group of Estonian astronomy enthusiasts that have been chasing eclipses for several years. This will be the first time for me to come to this side of the pond. So, yay! Welcome to the United States, Tarbo. We are excited that you're going to be able to be here. We love getting your emails, just finding out what you're doing and just everyone's different interests, your show suggestions, jokes, riddles, whatever you guys send our way. We appreciate it. Email at weatherbrains.com, and please sign up for our newsletter that comes out every Thursday morning. Go to our website and you'll see our cute little faces, and you'll see an area that says sign up for our newsletter. And so you can get this week's article comes from our friend Troy. So it's going to be a good one.
Thank you so much, Jen. That is just awesome. It sounded like to me, Troy, that Tarmo was a little nervous about coming to America. So we need to give him some good travel tips.
Yes. And you know what's interesting about that, and I think everyone on the panel will agree. I'm sitting down here, 50 miles off the totality, basically just the northwest of Austin. it's interesting to look, and several magazines have, I forget the latest one that I saw that did look at climatology of April weather. And guess what? Texas is not necessarily, the Northeast is not particularly the place to be. And Texas is not particularly the place to be in a sense. It's interesting. Low overcast, I'm not sure is quite as sexy as having a clear sky. So anyway.
Yeah, there's a good article in the BAMS. I think this the WeatherWise magazine that just
it was
came out
WeatherWise. You are correct. Yes,
that talks about that exact same thing. So yeah, I'm a little nervous. I've got a hotel room reserved in San Antonio. So
how'd
we're not
you
going to
luck
get
into that,
one,
sir? I mean,
you just hit enter enough times on the Hilton website, eventually you get one. So
no, but I'm serious. Well. You know what I mean is that you cannot find a hotel, and by the way, the airlines, I'm told, into Austin, San Antonio, places like that are already booked. Southwest Airlines is actually scheduled a nonstop flight from Austin to Indianapolis during the middle of the eclipse. They've actually got it sitting out there, and the word is it's already completely booked as well.
Well, that way they won't have to worry about cloud cover. So that's
one place. Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
Well, travel affects Thanksgiving. Anybody's Thanksgiving plans being impacted? Let's go through our weather roundup here. Kim, y'all be staying home or going far away for the holiday?
Yep, we're just going to be here in Oklahoma. So looking forward to hopefully a continuation of our perfect, beautiful fall weather. That would be really nice.
And Dr. Neil Jacobs, hopefully the government shutdown won't impact travel. What are you hearing in that world?
It won't impact my travel. Not anymore. I don't know. It's I'll get into this with my pick of the week with some recent legislation, but as far as the weather and the holidays, I'm going to be headed down to Charleston, South Carolina, probably tomorrow night. And yeah, I can't lose. If there's calm winds, there might be some fun stuff to do. And if that coastal low forms, there might even be some different fun stuff to do. So be an interesting few days for sure.
We thought about you when we saw some surfers on some big waves. Yeah. Last week
was that Dr. Neil? Was that him?
No, I was at work.
Okay.
There you go. Jen Nairmore, y'all having good weather for Thanksgiving in Columbus?
As far as I know, I don't know. I'll be in the radio studio. I'm working. So, but my mom comes over and we have a little wine and we have our Thanksgiving dinner. My brother and his family go to Pennsylvania. So it's just the two of us with Cece the cat. So I got a big enough turkey breast for my mom, myself, and Cece. So we're in good shape. I'll do my radio work and then we just kind of hang out and just visit. And it's a wonderful time with her.
That's awesome. Troy Kimmel, what about you in Austin?
This is one where I kind of lean back to Ashley's way to find out, it's nice to have those days off, Ashley, but unfortunately, the University of Texas, I'm trying to watch what I say. We have a Friday ball game on the day after at 7:00 in the evening, which pretty much keeps me from doing it. I can't leave. I mean, the university is closed next week. They asked for a week off at Thanksgiving and by the way, in university, when you come back for the exams the next week and it's all over with, be afraid. What you ask for, you may get sometimes. And unfortunately, we got that. And then we turn around to exams the following week, the final exams the following week. So I'm sticking pretty close to home. Family's going to take off without me. So
there you go. James A. in Tulsa. What's looking up for your family during the holiday?
I've got sister and her family coming up from Dallas, cousin who is kind of like a second sister coming in from California. So we're going to have a good time. And we are doing the trick in November sweeps where you retitle your newscasts on a day of the week so they don't count ratings. So we're doing that on Wednesday. And I'll be taking Wednesday off. So cheat the system. But looking ahead, that's what we went with today for the forecast here. So at the end of the 10-day forecast, which as we all know is
no voodoo involved there. Yeah, I saw one of the runs of the GFS, some snow down in the hill country there, Troy.
That's it. I'm calling it quits.
I hope you missed that.
Let that happen, please.
social media tomorrow will go. Never mind.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Elle's dad is coming, so we're debating is it a 14-pound turkey or a 12-pound turkey or a 15-pound turkey? So, it'll be fun around there as we cook for a big group. How about you, Ashley? What do y'all do for Thanksgiving?
Well, in the past, I've always worked Thanksgiving. So because I've always covered the weather in Alabama, I always work the Iron Bowl too. So I have generally given my team Thanksgiving off in trade off that I could have some days closer to Christmas since I do have little ones. So that's always been pretty much a fair trade. And also, my in-laws live pretty close to my parents, so it's always really hard. I thought when I got married and they only lived 3 miles from each other that this was going to be easy. It was like, oh, you can do 2 stops. No. It's like all about equitability. Now I wish one lived a lot further away so you could actually say, no, I've got to go to this state in this year, and then even number of years you get this. So
do y'all have a ball game?
I've actually been in a habit.
Yeah. Do y'all have a ball game, Ashley?
We do. So leading into that, I will actually be working the Iron Bowl. So, but I will get Thanksgiving Day off. Auburn only has Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off as the university. So students will be back Monday and Tuesday. So we'll drive to Atlanta and we will do a whirlwind 48-hour tour in Atlanta with the family. So I will say, blessing, I don't have to cook this year. So at least I've got that going for me. I'll make a really good side and maybe a dessert for the families. And then I will travel back and may actually leave the kiddos with grandparents back in Atlanta. And like you, Troy, I may come back and be covering the Iron Bowl. Now, my mom has season tickets, and so she likes to bring the kids. So I actually have a built-in babysitter, and I can always go. And thankfully, the section we sit in that we've had tickets for over 20 years is right below the observation booth. And so I tell the kids, I can watch you from my binoculars, so don't act up. Mom can see you, everything that you do. So, but we have fun. And, being an Auburn fan, I mean, sometimes it's hard because I've had to dress neutral being in television, even when I work game days. But I've had some pretty cool experiences on game day. Like the kick six was pretty cool.
Yeah. You just had to bring it up, Ashley. Say that again, James.
Do you have any predictions on this year's game?
I do. Auburn wins. It's going to be close. 21-17 score prediction.
Wow.
They
played the Alabama Auburn game for several years.
As long, Ashley, as that's not the temperatures, 21-17. Talk about the game score, right?
Listen, I have been at some very cold Iron Bowls. So, yes. And thankfully, it's not supposed to be cold next week. And I hope, goodness, we're supposed to get rain this week. It clears up this Saturday. Hopefully next week we'll have another little batch come through midweek, but hopefully it clears out for the Iron Bowl. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, one of the coldest Iron Bowls I remember was on Thanksgiving Day in Legion Field in Birmingham in the 92 season. And
is that the one where it snowed or it like?
No, it was a day like today with kind of an opaque, partially sunny sky, but it was cold. And that SEC championship game a couple of weeks later was ice cold. That was the very first SEC championship game. Thank goodness now they play that. Well, I shouldn't say that since I'm on the Commission Bureau of Birmingham. I didn't start that conversation. Sorry about that. Well, here's that time of the week where we do picks of the week. Ashley, we're glad you stuck around. I don't know if you know we do this, but we share something weather related, whether it's a book, a website, an app, a magazine, journal, article, whatever. So we'll give you a minute or two to think about it. I'll start with Dr. Kim Clocko-McLean. Kim, what's your pick of the week?
All right. Well, motivated by the conversation earlier about expanding our horizons in weather, I'm sharing a fun little tidbit of space weather for everybody. So this is a recently reformulated prediction from the Space Weather Prediction Center. So their time scales for prediction are either seconds or like decades. And they have a prediction about solar cycles. So when the intensity of, essentially solar activity comes and goes, it goes in about a 10-year pattern. And this solar cycle has been much more intense than climatology would have suggested. And it's been also arriving sort of sooner. So they anticipate an earlier peak, and they just put out a revised forecast for about the next 10 years. So, and as we're all talking about our forecast for 10 days and how problematic that is, just go pity them.
I signed up for a really cool text messaging service, and I'll need to share that as a pick of the week sometime for when there are solar flares and potential auroras and things. And that's been really fascinating and eye opening to kind of track that, because that's one of the bucket list items would be to go to Norway or Iceland or up into the Arctic. I know Dr. Neal's probably done that a dozen times, but that would be a bucket list item for me. So it's going to be interesting to see as we go into this busier solar cycle. Dr. Neal Jacobs, you got a pick of the week for us?
I do. So my pick of the week is the Weather Act reauthorization. If you weren't tracking this, it went into markup and was voted out of committee unanimously. There's a lot of nuggets in there. I think there's something for everyone. I did want to highlight Section 405, which is the NOAA weather radio modernization. Lots of cool stuff. The thing that I think that people should take a look at is all of this is live streamed on YouTube, and it's still there, is how bipartisan this was. It was introduced by a Republican and Democrat, and every single amendment was introduced and co-sponsored by both the Republican and Democrat. It was a bipartisan love fest for all things related to weather, and you should really take a look.
Yeah, our legislative affairs director. Thank you, Dr. Neal. That is great to hear, especially the bipartisan portion. Talking to somebody tonight, I brought up Chat GPT, and it immediately devolved into an argument about whether it favors Biden or whether it favors Trump. And I just was like, time out, time out, time out. Please spare me of this. This is what we have to get away from. So let's have more of that bipartisanship thing that you're talking about, Dr. Neal. Jen Nearmore, you got a pick of the week for us?
I do. So yesterday was the anniversary of an F3 that hit Stratford, Iowa, back in 2005. 17.6-mile path. Sadly, there was one fatality. It was an 84-year-old woman, Lucille Runyon, and she was killed in her destroyed home. And was looking at some video that we have attached to our summary about this, and it actually was posted on Daryl Hertzman's YouTube site, and it's an Iowa helicopter survey of that tornado. It was very good helicopter views of the damage, and toward the end you could see the scouring in the fields and all that. So just wanted to share that as my pick of the week.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jen. Dr. Troy Kimmel.
Yeah, not
Austin,
doctor.
Texas. I don't know if I'm I just call James everybody doctor now.
Oh,
but,
okay. That sounds good.
Do you need a pick of the week, or have you got a pick of the week?
You know what? I need one. Anyone got one that I can borrow? I'm not. I just don't. I'm buried with the end of semester stuff, and I haven't had a chance to really think about it. My apologies.
We understand
Foghorn.
Foghorn. There we go. But thank you for all your outstanding questions and input tonight. It's been fun hearing your comparisons with Ashley. Thank you for sharing that, Troy. And good luck. James A. up in Tulsa, what you got for us?
I have a tweet from Michael Lowry, who is at ABC in Miami, and he had plotted up the locations. How does he say this? Locations in the United States that were in the NHC forecast cones more than any others. And it's quite unusual. Washington County, Maine was the spot. And yes, that is the easternmost point in the United States that borders Canada. Who would have guessed that going into this year?
If you'd had that on your bingo card, you'd have thought you were in trouble, wouldn't you?
Millionaire.
That's incredible. Thank you for that, James A. My pick of the week is the Weather Channel Morning Brief newsletter. I don't think anyone's ever claimed this, but it is a great little breezy, fact-filled package you get in your inbox every morning. It's got a little trivia, a little weather history, a couple of good stories, some weather explainers, and a feature that I always enjoy called "This Caught My Eye" from meteorologist Chris Stolze from the Weather Channel. So that's my pick of the week. Is the sign up for that? If you're wondering why I'm doing this, our fearful leader is somewhere over a barf bag back at the TV station right now. He's picked up a stomach bug from one of these schools that he visits every day, but he's running the show back there between heaves. So, Ashley, I've stalled as long as I can for you. You come up with anything, or do we need to give you the Foghorn too? I bet not.
Well, I think this is appropriate and kind of fun. I will give you some extreme weather history for the Iron Bowl as we lead into the Iron Bowl. So there was one of the coldest Iron Bowls. The average temperature that day was 33 degrees. I remember it was like 32 and a half. And one of the warmest games, the average high was 70 for that game. And then one of the rainiest was in 1983. There was 4.03 inches of rain that game, if I remember. I think at the National Weather Service down in Clear, they reported over 9 inches, though. But at Legion Field, so that was the neutral territory that Auburn and Alabama used to play preceding 1990. Was it 1990 was the first game they started going back and forth to Tuscaloosa and Auburn. But in 1983, that was when Auburn broke the streak. Bo Jackson was playing, and the final score for that game was 23-20. 1983. There's your fun fact. Rainiest Iron Bowl on record.
Well, there was actually a tornado warning. This is where James Fann always shares the Pepper Simpson story about them making the announcement. We talked about all this preparation in these football stadiums tonight, and there was none back then. It was just good luck.
Oh, no. And everyone stayed in the stadium for that tornado warning, too.
Yeah, it was that was irrelevant. The game was way more important. So it was a different day and time back then. Well, unless anyone else has any further business, we'll put show 930 in the books. WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast that's all about weather. We generally record it on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. It's a labor of love we've been doing for nearly 19 years now. I've been spending the weekend getting a lot of great guests for the next several weeks. We're booked all the way out through February now. We got some fantastic guests coming up. I'm still looking for an expert on Admiral Robert Fitzroy. So if anyone knows one, I've reached out to a couple of folks in England, and they're like, it's way past my bedtime to do that silly show. So anyway, we'll have to keep looking, but I've been fascinated by him. If you're new to the show, you can access us in all the normal ways that you consume podcasts, including our own YouTube channel. YouTube.com/WeatherBrains. All our social media accounts are on the website. You can find that at WeatherBrains.com. Please send those guest suggestions, your comments, your links, your rants, anything to email at WeatherBrains.com. But till next Monday night, I'm guest booking officer Bill Murray, hoping you'll join us on Saturday for the weather telethon for the American Red Cross. And I'll remind you to keep an eye to the sky because you'll always have something fun to look at. Ashley, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
Y'all, this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Well, come back anytime. We'd love to have you, and keep us posted on what you're doing. And
Kim, I want to connect, and Troy too. I want us to collaborate a little bit. So
drop me. I've got an easy email, Troy. I'm sorry, tkimmel@utexas.edu. So drop me a note. Let's do.
These are some collaborating folks right here, Ashley. So you come to the right spot. Well, y'all have a good week.
Take care, guys.
Any of y'all going to join on Saturday? Anybody? I guess everybody. I let everybody get away there. Dr. Neal. Anybody? You don't have any influence on the Hurricane Center director, do you? You think Mike would join us for our little segment on Saturday?
Let me shoot him an email. I could see if him or Jamie are available.
That'd be super. 4:40. It's just 20 minutes. It's easy. But it's hard to get folks on a Saturday.
Did you say 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. is our hour?
Central. That's right, Troy.
Okay. That's on the calendar?
I don't think so, Neil, but I'll put it there for you if that'll help.
Yeah, I've
got some real detailed instructions on the Zoom and all that because James Bryerson's done a fabulous job, organizing it. Not like I do this show, but in an actual professional manner.
That'd be perfect.
I'm going to pop in with you, Bill. I'll try to.
Good.
I think I could probably jump in too. I'm going to be down at my mom's house, but I'll do my best to drop in.
That'll be great. Come as you are. Bring a dish. It'll be fun.
I'll be listening, so I'll tune in.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun day. Thank you.